TrueStory Vibes warmly welcomes all our beloved listeners. We're so glad to see you again in our familiar time slot.
Today,
TrueStory Vibes brings you a brand new story, one that we hope will touch your heart and stay with you. As you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing the quote or moment that left the deepest impression on you. Wishing you a wonderful and meaningful listening experience. The wind howled like a freight train rattling down an empty track, rattling the panes of glass in Rachel's café as if it intended to shatter them.
outside,
Neon streetlights flickered across puddles formed in the asphalt. Inside the narrow dining room, the single overhead bulb cast long shadows against peeling wallpaper. Rain dripped in uneven curtains along the window's worn frame, carrying a chill that crept into every corner of the small space. Rachel Parker closed her eyes for a moment, leaning against the chipped Formica counter. She had been here since 6 that morning, preparing for the day's breakfast rush, brewing coffee, flipping pancakes, wiping tables.
but now,
At nearly midnight, silence reigned. The church pew benches by the window stood empty, the cash registers display dim. Only the hum of the overhead bulb and the drip, drip, drip of rain kept company. A sudden thump at the back door made Rachel's heart jar. She reached instinctively for her phone, tucked between the sugar canisters. It was Derek's arrival schedule. He usually staggered in after one last drink at O'Malley's bar. Ever since the cafe's second mortgage payment came due, his shifts at the architect's firm had dried up, replaced by nights downing whiskey with old colleagues. Tonight, as often lately, he would pull the door open in a liquor-fumed swagger. Rachel. His voice slurred, carrying over the tile floor in sloppy syllables. She took a slow breath, steeling herself. Derek, you shouldn't. He didn't wait. The doorknob rattled, metal scraping, then he stumbled in. A half-full bottle of bourbon clutched in one hand, the other pressed to his forehead. His designer's jacket, once crisp, now hung loose around his broad shoulders, the left sleeve twisted. Torn collar, loosened tie, whiskey-scented hair plastered across his brow. "Where's my dinner?" he slurred, voice thick. "I said I wanted something warm." Rachel folded her arms, shielding her face from sudden fear. Every instinct screamed to slip into the kitchen, but she stayed. "It's after midnight, Derek. I'm closed." He let out a harsh laugh, jagged enough to cut the heavy quiet. "Closed? This cafe's mine just as much as yours, remember?" He raised the bourbon bottle like a scepter. "You forget who pays the bills now." She swallowed the sting of tears.
we talked about this.
"I'll serve you in the morning, but you can't keep coming back here wasted." He took a staggering step forward, glass thudding against the counter. "Don't get smart with me, Rachel." His eyes flashed red. "I'm the head of this family." He hurled the bottle down, glass exploding into a spiderweb of shards across the black and white checkered floor. The splash of amber liquid hissed on the tile. In that split second, Rachel's heart seized. Every late-night breakdown, every bruise she'd hidden, it all coalesced into one sharp, dreadful clarity. She reached for Lily. "Lily," she whispered, voice raw with panic. Behind the kitchen partition, a small figure huddled on the floor, a teenager clutching an empty soup bowl, knees pulled tight to her chest. Lily Parker, at 18 barely 5'2", had grown up quick. Her long dark hair fell across slender shoulders, and wide hazel eyes reflected both fear and determination. Rachel stepped forward, trying to shield her daughter. "Stay back, Derek." He whirled, his expression forging molten anger. "You keep telling her to stay back, but whose side are you on, huh?" He advanced another foot, fists clenched. "Your little girl thinks she can do your job for you now? Protect you?" Rachel's breath hitched. "Derek." Lily sprang up in one fluid motion, eyes blazing in the dim light. In her hand gleamed a pair of rusty garden shears, the ones Rachel used to trim parsley and basil behind the cafe. She held them out as though wielding a sword. "Back off," Lily's voice rang clear, stronger than Rachel had ever heard it. "One step closer, and I swear you'll regret it." A deafening crack of wind rattled the front windows. The bulb flickered, casting a strobe of light over the trio. Derek froze halfway forward. He stared at Lily for a long moment, the bottle's shattered neck still dripping amber at his feet. What the hell?
He stuttered.
You're just a kid. Lily's jaw set. 18 years old, and old enough to know protecting my mom is worth more than any scrap of glass. You hit her again, I will end you. Rachel's heart thumped so hard, she thought it might burst. She reached for Lily's shoulder, voice barely above a sob. Honey, put it down. But Lily did not waver. The edges of her resolve shone in the low glow, cutting through the tension. Derek's eyes darted between mother and daughter, confusion warping his features. Then, almost reluctantly, he took a step back, stumbling over a shard of glass. He pressed against the counter for balance, chest heaving, nostrils flaring as if oxygen itself might betray him. For a long, breathless moment, the only sound was Lily's ragged breathing and the rain's relentless tattoo against the windows. Then, maybe we should call someone, Lily said, voice hollow. The police. Derek's face contorted. He spun on a heel, grabbing his ruined jacket. His voice rose, raw with humiliation. You think I need the police? He spat on the floor between shards of glass. I'm your father. Well, stepfather. I can do whatever the hell I want in my own house. Rachel felt bile rise in her throat. This isn't your house anymore, Derek. Not after tonight. His laugh was bitter. We'll see about that. With that, he stumbled toward the back exit. Lily lowered the shears but kept them raised until she heard him slam the door behind him. The cafe door rattled in its frame, then went quiet. Only after the front door clicked shut did Rachel sink to her knees. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest, trying to slow her racing heart. Lily stood over her, blades still raised, eyes bright with adrenaline. It's okay, Mom, Lily whispered fiercely. I've got you. Rachel reached up and pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. For a heartbeat, they simply held each other. Behind them, the shattered bourbon bottle lay in stark contrast to the sanctuary they shared, a mother and daughter against the night.
Outside.
The storm raged on, but inside Rachel's cafe, a new kind of resolve was born. No longer would Rachel Parker endure in silence. No longer would Lily remain powerless. In the fractured glow of that battered dining room, the stage was set for a different kind of fight, one where love, not fear, would take the lead. As the shattered glass crunched beneath Lily's sneakers and Rachel pressed a trembling hand against her racing heart, the cafe's midnight hush seemed to warp time itself. In the fading glow of the overhead bulb, Rachel's thoughts drifted backward, pulled into memories she had long tried to bury. 7 years earlier, the Parker household had known a different rhythm. Mornings began with the laughter of a small girl, her curly hair bouncing as she chased sunlight across the living room. Her father, Thomas Parker, would rise before dawn, donning his worn mechanic's coveralls and kissing Rachel gently on the forehead before heading off to Seattle's shipyard. Evenings were punctuated by the clink of tools and the sizzle of whatever simple dinner Rachel prepared. Together, they formed a quiet, sturdy family, a trio bound by love's everyday rituals. Rachel remembered the day Lily turned 7. The sun blazed high over Lake Washington, and neighborhood kids gathered on the lawn for cupcakes and homemade lemonade. Lily's grin stretched from ear to ear as Thomas lifted her onto his broad shoulders. That day, everyone said how lucky Lily was to have a dad who could build her a treehouse, fix her bicycle chain, and tuck her in with bedtime stories about steel ships and ocean voyages. But luck, as it often does, shifted on a dime. It was a crisp November morning when the catastrophe struck. Thomas had volunteered to stay late at the yard, helping repair a critical support beam on the thrice-classed cargo vessel Seattle Star. A faulty weld sent a steel girder crashing down without warning. Amid dust and metal shards, Thomas was pinned beneath the weight of the beam. Frantic alarms rang through the yard. Coworkers rushed in, struggling to lift the beam free, but Thomas's life slipped away before emergency crews could extract him. When the news reached Rachel, she felt her entire world fracture. She clung to Lily with 2 arms that seemed suddenly too weak, weeping in the hospital corridor until the walls themselves blurred under her tears. In Lily's small, trembling voice, Rachel heard her daughter ask over and over, "Is Daddy going to be okay, Mommy?" Each repetition tore into Rachel's soul, a reminder that the universe could be heartlessly capricious. In the wake of Thomas's death, finances unraveled like frayed rope. Rachel tried to maintain her teaching position at the elementary school, but grief clouded her concentration. It became impossible to stand before a classroom of eager children when her own heart felt wrenched in two. Insurance covered funeral costs, but not much beyond. The savings Rachel had tucked away for college admissions dwindled under mortgage payments and Lily's growing needs. That winter, Rachel made a decision that both terrified and liberated her. She would leave the classroom behind and reinvent herself. With Thomas gone, the house needed more than love. It needed revenue. She took over a tiny cafe space on Rainier Avenue South, renamed it Rachel's Café, and poured her remaining energy into mastering espresso machines, perfecting pancake batter, and catering to the neighborhood's early commuters. Coffee cups became her new lesson plans, aprons, her classroom. Mornings began at 4:30 with a hiss of steam wands. Evenings stretched long as she scrubbed counters by lamplight. Lily, ever adaptable, learned to rise at dawn too, curling up in a corner booth to eat oatmeal while Rachel prepared lattes. In those quiet moments, mother and daughter developed a silent language of shared resilience. Each perfect foam heart drawn atop a cappuccino felt like a tiny victory over the grief that had threatened to consume them. 3 years into this precarious existence, Rachel first met Derek Shaw on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. She was kneading dough behind the prep counter when he walked in, a tall man in a charcoal gray suit, hair neatly combed back, carrying what looked like blueprints rolled under his arm. He asked for a latte with almond milk and a blueberry scone, speaking to Rachel with a soft, considerate tone that caught her off guard. "Busy afternoon?" he asked as she slid the steaming mug across the counter. "Always," Rachel replied, offering a polite smile. She noticed that despite his professional attire, his shoes were scuffed, and a smudge of flour lingered on his cuff. "You don't exactly look like a draftsman," she teased half-heartedly. He laughed, a warm sound that seemed to fill the room. "That's because I'm not. I'm an architect, but I also help at my parents' flower shop down the street when deadlines get tight." Rachel blinked, recognition blooming. "Grant's Flowers?" He nodded. "Small family business. It's where I grew up learning both aesthetics and hard work." As he spoke, Rachel felt a flicker of something she hadn't allowed herself in years, a sense of shared understanding. Both of them knew what it meant to juggle multiple roles, to grind through long hours for a modest paycheck, to mask personal vulnerability with a veneer of competence. In Derek's honest blue eyes, Rachel glimpsed a mirror of her own determination. Over the next few weeks, Derek became a regular. He'd stop in for an early morning brew before heading to his architecture firm downtown, or swing by late afternoon to help Rachel troubleshoot a leaky sink or reposition a wobbly table outside. One rainy morning, he shared an umbrella with Lily on the walk to school. Later that week, he surprised them with a freshly repaired door hinge free of charge. In each act, Derek conveyed genuine kindness. Nothing grandiose, but steady and unforced. Rachel, cautious by nature, frowned at first when Lily became attached. But Derek's gentle humor and quiet reliability gradually earned her trust. He offered to help with odd cafe repairs, taught Lily how to draft simple floor plans on scrap paper, and even joined Rachel one Christmas Eve to serve free hot cocoa to snowflake market shoppers. By the time Valentine's Day rolled around, Rachel had let her defenses fall just enough to accept his invitation for coffee, outside business hours. Looking back in the dim cafe light that fateful midnight, Rachel realized how fragile hope can be and how urgently people crave it after tragedy. Derek had arrived like a beacon during her darkest winter, offering warmth and practical help in equal measure. For a moment, it felt as if fate were granting her a second chance, not just to survive, but to thrive. Yet with Derek's arrival, an unwelcome undercurrent had crept into Rachel's carefully rebuilt life. A single spark can illuminate a dark room, but it can also signal the ignition of something volatile. The very man who had rescued her from absolute desolation would soon become the catalyst for fresh terror. As the damp February wind rattled the cafe windows, Rachel pressed her palms to her cheeks, willing herself back to the present. Lily stood beside her, face pale in the borrowed glow of the bulb. The garden shears lay abandoned on the floor, a crude but potent symbol of Lily's fierce determination. Rachel locked eyes with her daughter and whispered, "Thank you for saving us tonight." Lily nodded, swallowing. "We save each other, Mom." In that moment, the ghosts of the past, Thomas's laughter, the pained hospital hallways, the lonely early mornings at the cafe, all converged with the peril of the present. The road behind them had been treacherous, but it had forged something unbreakable between mother and daughter. Whatever storm lay ahead, Rachel knew they would face it together. And somewhere in the shadowed corners of that cafe, sealed beneath the weight of past sorrow and present danger, flickered a fragile spark of resolve, ready to ignite the courage they would need to overcome whatever came next. The days following Lily's desperate stand against Derek felt like walking through a minefield for Rachel Parker. Each sunrise brought another tremor of anxiety, each sunset another battle scar. Their small cafe on Rainier Avenue South, once a refuge of warm coffee and genuine smiles, had begun to echo with tension. Derek's moods twisted unpredictably. One moment he wore contrition like a cloak, the next he stormed through the door, eyes blazing with resentment. It was a drizzly Tuesday when the first real crack appeared. Rachel arrived before dawn to brew the day's first espresso. Steam hissed from the machine as she wiped condensation from the windows. Derek lingered at the entrance, jacket drenched, hands buried deep in pockets. "Coffee," he muttered, voice low. She poured a double shot with practiced precision, wary of his sudden presence. He took the cup without thanks and left as quickly as he'd come. By mid-morning, his apology texts had multiplied. "I'm sorry, Rachel. I'll do better." But when the afternoon crowd thinned, Rachel discovered another slip-up. The cafe's rooftop drain had clogged and now sent a tiny waterfall down the back wall. She dialed the plumber, expecting relief. Instead, Derek appeared with an architect's toolbox he'd borrowed from Valerie's flower shop. He opened the back door and knocked over a stack of empty flour sacks in his hurry, sending them crumpling across the floor. "I'll fix it," he barked. When she offered to handle it herself, his jaw clenched. "You do too much already," he snarled, then immediately looked guiltily away. Over the next 2 weeks, minor incidents fanned into a steady blaze. Plates rattled as he slammed the dishwasher door. Spilled sugar lay in glistening mounds on the counter. Once, Rachel found him in the kitchen at 3 a.m., scouring the floor for imaginary crumbs. Another time, he drove her car, into the cafe's back wall, shattering the paint and splintering a wooden support beam. He told her it was an accident, but the tremor in his apology whispered otherwise. Lily's own fears grew sharper. Late one afternoon, Rachel returned from the supply closet to find her daughter perched atop a high stool, eyes wide. A quick glance showed Derek leaning over the counter, shouting so loudly the coffee grinder shook. His words were indiscernible, but the violent tremor in his fist as it slammed the countertop spoke volumes. Lily bolted down and tugged Rachel's apron. Together, they edged away, uncomfortable witnesses to a man unraveling. Then came the night that shattered the fragile peace entirely. Rachel locked up after the dinner rush and flicked off the neon sign, ready to walk home. Derek appeared in the doorway, face contorted in fury, the smell of whiskey still clinging to his coat. "You think you can run this place without me?" he snarled, his breath hot on Rachel's neck. She shook her head, voice trembling. "I'm doing my best. Please, Derek, let's talk tomorrow." He didn't wait. He grabbed her arm so hard her fingernails gouged into her palm. A soft gasp escaped her. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Talk. All you ever do is run this place into the ground." Lily, who had been waiting for her mother by the car, saw Derek's fist strike Rachel's cheek. Time slowed. Rachel stumbled, fingertips brushing the pavement, and Derek advanced again. Lily's shock turned to enraged clarity. She dropped her backpack, grabbed a heavy cast-iron skillet from the trunk. No weapon in the world felt more appropriate than the one they used for breakfast pancakes, and swung it with every ounce of strength she possessed. The skillet collided with Derek's shoulder in a ringing clang. He froze, startled, pain flickering in his eyes. Rachel scrambled upright, pressing a trembling hand to her reddening cheek. "Get away from us," Lily hissed, her voice quaking. Derek lurched backward, eyes darting between mother and daughter. He smelled the skillet's iron tang, felt the stakes rising too high. With a final, shattered glare, he stormed off down Rainier Avenue, leaving Rachel and Lily alone in the rain-soaked parking lot. They watched him disappear into the mist, shaken but unbroken. Rachel sank to her knees on the wet asphalt, tears mingling with the drizzle. Lily knelt beside her, helpfully brushing gravel from Rachel's skirt. "Mom, are you okay?" she whispered. Rachel nodded, voice catching. "Thanks, baby. You saved us again." In the following days, Rachel's trembling hands lingered on her phone as she stared at the hotline number for the domestic violence shelter. She left several messages, hugging Lily tightly before school each morning. She called the bank, inquiring, timidly, about refinancing options. Derek's sporadic apologies kept arriving like uneasy ripples, but Rachel knew that an apology meant little when violence had become routine. One Saturday afternoon, a café regular named Marisol spotted her wiping tears behind the counter. Marisol was a retired nurse who'd lost her own marriage to years of shouting and control. Gently, she pressed a business card into Rachel's hand. "Safe Harbor Women's Center. You deserve safety." Rachel squeezed Lily's hand under the counter, resolute. She could not let another day pass trapped in fear. By May, the air smelled of lilacs and freshly brewed coffee, but inside Rachel's café a different scent lingered, one of tension and vigilance. Lily carried her cell phone everywhere, with Ethan's number on speed dial. Rachel had confided in her closest friend, Greg, who stopped by daily to ensure she never closed up alone. On May 20th, Derek's last outburst forced their decision. He burst in with a sheaf of eviction notices from the landlord, corners curling and ink smudged. "You're 2 months behind," he sneered, crumpling the papers into Rachel's hand. "And now you're going to lose more than just the stump." He stomped across the floorboards, cracking the polished wood. A single customer dropped a coffee cup in fright. It shattered at Rachel's feet. It was all she could bear. That night, Rachel and Lily sat at their kitchen table long after the dishes were done. The overhead light cast a solitary glow on their determined faces. Lily slid her stack of folded savings across the table, her after-school wages, gift money, every penny. "Mom," she said, voice small but unwavering, "I'd go with you tonight." Rachel's chest tightened with love and sorrow. She reached out and cradled Lily's hand. "We'll find a new path," she promised. "Somewhere safe. Together." In the weeks that followed, every spilled latte and slammed door became a testament to their resolve. The violence had escalated beyond what either could endure. It would take courage to step away from everything they had built, but it would take even more courage to stay and let fear claim their lives. And so, beneath the relentless Pacific Northwest rain, mother and daughter silently vowed they would reclaim their sanctuary, even if it meant walking into the unknown. Their fight was no longer about preserving a business. It was about preserving each other. Under that promise, the final threads of old fear unraveled, and a new story began to take shape, one built on the unwavering strength of two hearts determined to survive. Rain pummeled the pavement outside Rachel's café as dusk settled into deep night. The storm-swollen clouds cast a heavy gloom over the neighborhood, and the only light came from the shattered neon "Open" sign hanging crookedly in the window. Inside, Rachel and Lily huddled beneath the café's lone booth, voices hushed. Rachel's hand trembled as she dialed Ethan Reed's number for the third time. Each ring echoed through the empty dining room until, finally, his voice crackled with concern. "Lily called me. What's happening?" Before Rachel could respond, the back door burst open with a thunderous crash. Derek Shaw stumbled in, silhouette blurred by rain, eyes wild with anger. He gripped a broken chair leg, splintered wood jutting like a blade. "You think you can run from me?" he spat, each word dripping with menace. Lily scrambled from behind the booth, heart pounding so loudly it felt as though the walls might shake. "Get away from my mother," she screamed. Derek lunged forward, chair leg raised. Rachel leapt between them, arms outstretched. But her foot caught on a loose floorboard. She fell, catching herself on one hand, and the chair leg slammed into her shoulder in a sickening crack. Pain bloomed up her arm in white-hot surges. Rachel gasped, staggering backward. Lily's scream pierced the air. Derek turned his fury on Lily, advancing so close her pink raincoat brushed his soaked trousers. "You little," he snarled, raising the chair leg again. In that instant, the cafe's front windows shattered outward, propelled by a powerful kick. A man clad in a dark raincoat stood in the downpour, breath visible in the cold night air. He cradled a flashlight in one hand and a long baton in the other. Thunder rumbled overhead as he shouted, "Derek Shaw, drop the weapon." Derek froze, blinking. "Ethan?" Lily whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Ethan Reed stepped inside, shaking rain from his jacket. "You stay away from them." His voice was low, but unwavering. "Hands off." Derek sneered, raising the chair leg in defiance. "This is my family's cafe. I can do whatever I want." Ethan advanced another step. "You can't hurt them anymore." He swung the baton with surprising precision, striking Derek's wrist. The chair leg clattered to the floor, wood splintering further. Derek roared, stumbling backward. Lily darted to her mother's side, helping Rachel to her feet. Ethan kept Derek's gaze locked, baton resting against his shoulder like a sentinel. "I'm calling the police," he said. Derek's face twisted. He looked around wildly before finally dropping to his knees. Rainwater dripped through the broken windows, mixing with the sweat on Derek's forehead. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Derek's shoulders slumped as two uniformed officers burst through the door, flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Hands behind your back," one ordered. Derek didn't resist, as they snapped cuffs around his wrists and led him outside into the storm. Inside the cafe, Lily sank into the booth, enveloping Rachel in her arms. Rachel's breath came in ragged gasps, but she managed a shaky laugh. "You saved us," she whispered, voice thick. Ethan set his baton aside and knelt across from them. He wiped Lily's wet hair from her forehead. "You two had me worried out there." His eyes were bright with relief. "I saw Derek coming through the back alley. I ran as fast as I could." Amid the wind's roar and the police radio chatter, a calm descended over the battered cafe. Officers fanned out, photographing damage, the broken chair leg, the gouge in the linoleum floor, the damp footprints of a terrified mother and daughter. One officer approached, offering a medical kit. "Ma'am, let me clean that wound." As he dabbed disinfectant on Rachel's shoulder, she bit her lip against the sting. Ethan helped steady her hand. Lily watched with solemn eyes, then turned to Ethan. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." He offered a gentle smile. "Always." Later, when the officers had departed and the storm lulled to a soft patter, the three of them stood in the cafe's soaked interior, lanterns casting a warm glow over puddles reflecting their faces. Derek's echoing threats were now just a memory, confined to police reports and shattered wood. Rachel wrapped her arms around Lily and Ethan, drawing them close. "I don't know what I'd have done without you tonight." Her voice cracked with emotion. Lily leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. "We'll get through this," she said, voice resolute. Ethan squeezed Rachel's hand. "We already are." Outside, the wind eased, and a break in the clouds revealed a single sliver of moonlight. Within that slender beam, Rachel allowed herself to hope. They were battered, but unbroken. In the darkest hour, their bond had forged a lifeline, one that would guide them towards safety and freedom, no matter how long the night lasted. That afternoon, A restless tension clung to the air in Rachel's cafe, far heavier than the usual espresso steam. Rachel Parker had spent every waking moment since Derek's arrest preparing to strike back, and now the time had finally come. She'd studied the forged deeds on her kitchen table late into the night, cross-referencing bank ledgers and notarized signatures. Lily, quiet and determined, helped upload video clips to a secure folder on her phone. Together they carried that phone, plus a digital voice recorder, in a small black satchel. At precisely 10:30 the next morning, Rachel locked the cafe door behind her, slipped into her faded denim jacket, and motioned for Lily to follow. They boarded the number 36 bus downtown, exchange of furtive glances propelling them to the Pike Place market stop. Lily gripped the satchel against her chest. Rachel's pulse thrummed in her throat. The world of fresh produce and clamoring tourists blurred past until they reached the familiar red awning of Grant's Flowers. Val Grant's shop sat nestled between a cheese stall and a second-hand book vendor, its display of tulips and ranunculus impossible to ignore. Derek emerged a moment later, impeccably dressed in a crumpled navy suit, phone pressed to his ear. He paced, brows knit, his other hand fidgeting with a fountain pen. As soon as he turned his back, Rachel and Lily melted into the crowd, following at a cautious distance. Every few steps, Rachel pressed record on the voice recorder hidden in her pocket. After 5 minutes of murmured negotiation, Derek pocketed his phone and shoved the pen into his jacket. He strode inside the flower shop. The bell above the door jingled, soft and sweet, as Val Grant greeted him with that same familiar warmth he once offered Rachel, a greeting that now felt poisoned by deception. Lily recorded from behind a row of daisies by the front window, her phone's camera lens steady. In Val's cramped back office, Derek laid a thick stack of documents on the rose-scented desk. Val retrieved 2 coffee mugs from a shelf, her movements graceful as she poured steaming dark roast. Without pausing, Derek said, "Tomorrow's deadline. Rachel's going to lose her mortgage unless we finalize the transfer tonight. Did you get the signatures?" Val pressed her lips together, then nodded. "I dropped the signed deed in your bag this morning. Your stepdaughter won't know what hit her until the bank calls." Rachel's chest constricted. She replayed each word inside her mind as the recorder's red light blinked. Lily bit her lip, voice hushed but urgent. "That's confirmation. They plan to steal the cafe and the house." Rachel placed a steadying hand on Lily's arm. Outside, tourists clustered around flower stands, oblivious to the conspiracy underway. Derek and Val moved from the office to the storefront, wrapping delicate bouquets, Val's deft fingers expertly tying ribbons, Derek tossing his pen aside as he half-heartedly offered instruction. Rachel watched him trace her handwriting on a folded bank form, the same form he'd insisted she only initial weeks ago. Now it made perfect sense. He had replaced her initials with forgeries, redirected mortgage payments into hidden accounts. At midday, Derek slipped out carrying 3 armfuls of blooms. He strode across the wooden floorboards, heading for a sleek, black SUV parked curbside, a vehicle that did not belong to him. Rachel and Lily trailed just far enough to remain inconspicuous. When Derek slid into the passenger seat, Val slipped behind the wheel. Lily leaned out the cafe's rental van window and whispered, "He's with her now." Rachel took out her phone, capturing the license plate before motioning Lily to drive. They followed at a safe but deliberate distance, winding through Pike Place lanes until the SUV stopped at the brick-lined entrance of an upscale law office. By 1:15, the pair had established watch. Lily popped popcorn kernels in the microwave while Rachel reviewed every recorded snippet. The office windows were tinted, but they could see silhouettes through the frosted glass. After 20 minutes of silence, Derek and Val reemerged, their briefcases heavier and their gait triumphant. Val slipped a thin envelope into Derek's breast pocket. Rachel's grip tightened on the recorder. This was the perfect cut, the evidence tied together of their plan to seize Rachel's cafe. Rachel signaled Lily. They followed the SUV again, until it halted outside First Citizens Bank. Derek hopped out, sprinted inside. Val climbed into the passenger seat. "We have every piece we need," Rachel hissed. Call the detective. Lily's fingers flew over the speed dial. Meanwhile, Rachel pressed stop on the recorder, clutching it like a lifeline. Inside the bank, Derek approached the manager's window. He slid documents across: deeds, signatures, account transfer forms. His posture exuded confidence, the sort that comes from believing your betrayal is airtight. Then Lily slipped out of the van and marched to the front door. "Police!" she yelled. The bank doors swung open. Security guards rushed out as Derek tensed, eyes flicking with panic. From behind him came Rachel's calm voice, amplified but unwavering. "Derek Shaw, you're under investigation for forgery, fraud, and embezzlement. Step away from the counter." Customers froze in mid-transaction. Derek's face turned ashen. "Rachel, this isn't happening," he stammered. Val Grant, still in the driver's seat of the SUV, watched with a mask of faux shock. Within moments, Detective Alvarez and uniformed officers flooded the scene. Alvarez held up Lily's phone, showing live video. Derek's own admission that he and Val would finalize the transfer to leave Rachel homeless and helpless. "That's enough," Alvarez said, stepping forward. "Mr. Shaw, you're coming with us. Ms. Grant, you're advised to remain at the station for questioning." Derek's jaw dropped as officers removed his cufflinks and snapped handcuffs in place. Val sat mute, lips pursed, fingers twisting a silk scarf. Rachel wove through the throng, wiping tears from her cheeks. Lily caught her eye, offering a trembling smile. "We did it," Lily said softly. "We saved the café and our home." Detective Alvarez guided Rachel aside. "I'll need your statement and all original recordings," she said. "This is going to court." In the hush that followed Derek's humiliating exit, Rachel and Lily stood amid spilled flower petals and stunned bank patrons. The air smelled of lilacs and freshly printed money, an ironic reminder that greed often blooms in unsuspecting places. As Val Grant was escorted to a patrol car, Rachel felt something shift in her chest, a fierce, steady pride. Betrayal cut deep, but truth had proven sharper. She wrapped an arm around Lily, pressing the recorder to her ear one last time. Hearing Derek's own voice confessing his crimes was more satisfying than any revenge could be. Later, as they returned to the café under gathering clouds, Rachel exhaled against Lily's wind-tousled hair. "We still have a fight on our hands," she said. "Banks, lawyers, paperwork." Each word reminded her of the uphill battle ahead. But Lily squeezed her hand. "We'll do it together," Lily said. In that promise, Rachel heard a new beginning, one forged by love and relentless courage, unbreakable even by the darkest betrayal. By the time the morning sun crested the sound, the Parker household was already buzzing with activity. News of Derek Shaw's arrest for forgery and fraud had spread through Seattle's legal and financial communities like wildfire. Rachel Parker and her daughter Lily had spent the pre-dawn hours at Detective Alvarez's precinct, signing affidavits and handing over original recordings, forged deeds, bank statements, and every shred of evidence they'd painstakingly gathered. Back at Rachel's cafe, the atmosphere was tense yet hopeful. Marisol, the retired nurse who had first given Rachel the Safe Harbor Women's Center card, now manned the counter, offering free coffee to concerned neighbors. Greg, Rachel's childhood friend and the cafe's part-time handyman, had replaced the shattered window pane and put up a new security camera system at her request. At 9 a.m., two sharply dressed attorneys arrived, one from Heritage law firm representing the bank, the other from Safe Harbor's pro bono legal team helping Rachel. They moved through the cafe with purposeful calm, clutching briefcases bulging with legal documents. Attorney Lindquist from Heritage cleared his throat in the empty back office. "Ms. Parker, your mortgage servicer has placed a temporary freeze on the loan transfers Derek attempted. Our bank's compliance department reviewed your file and found no legitimate signature authorization for the ownership changes. They've reversed all pending transactions as of last night." He slid a thick packet across the table. "These are the reinstatement documents and an extension agreement. You have 60 days to bring the mortgage current at yesterday's terms." Rachel exhaled, relief flooding her chest. She clutched the papers with trembling fingers. "Thank you," she whispered.
I
"I don't know what to say." Lindquist nodded. "We'll draft a restraining order against Mr. Shaw to prevent any further encroachment on your property. And you can rest assured, the café is legally yours." Next, Attorney Nguyen from Safe Harbor spoke, voice warm but firm. "We've also filed for emergency protective orders concerning your home and business assets. The court clerk issued a summons for Derek and Val Grant to appear next week. We'll file a civil suit for damages as well, employee theft, emotional distress, and the cost of repairing the café." Rachel and Lily exchanged a glance that pierced deeper than any legal guarantee. It meant they'd see Derek and Val brought to account, not just for papers and bank accounts, but for shattering their sense of security. As the lawyers departed to draw up final paperwork, Rachel stepped outside to breathe in the sharp spring air. Lily joined her, leaning against the café's new awning. Across the street, a "closed for repairs" sign had been replaced with a freshly painted open banner. Potted daffodils lined the entrance, planted by Greg that morning. Lily slipped her arm through her mother's.
Mom.
"I'm so proud of you." Rachel smiled, brushing a damp strand of hair from Lily's face. "I couldn't have done it without you." Lily pointed across the street.
Look.
Through the French doors of the café, customers returned in waves, regulars and newcomers alike. Each carried a sense of solidarity, a writer tapping away on a laptop, an elderly couple sharing blueberry scones, a construction crew from a nearby project ordering enough lattes to fuel half the block. Back inside, Rachel resumed her station behind the espresso machine. Each shot she pulled felt like a small victory. She greeted customers with genuine warmth, no longer the edge of fear, but the calm confidence of someone who'd reclaimed her life. At noon, Detective Alvarez walked in, uniform crisp, badge gleaming. She approached Rachel with a file folder. "Miss Parker, I wanted you to have these," she said, handing over a stack of press clippings, articles detailing Derek Shaw's charges, confessions from Valerie Grant, and official bank statements reversing Derek's transfers. "They'll help if anyone asks for proof." "I'm glad we could help." Rachel nodded, so grateful she could barely speak. Lily bounded over, slipping a hug around the detective's waist. "Thank you for saving Dad," she said, half playful, half earnest. Alvarez laughed. He almost had it all: flowers, deeds, fancy dinners, until he underestimated a mother and daughter who refused to back down. As afternoon light waned into golden evening, Rachel closed the café for a quick break. Greg emerged from the shed with a power drill and 3 new security cameras. "Just installed the last one," he announced. "Coverage of both entrances and the alley. No more surprises." Rachel gripped his shoulder. "Thank you, Greg. From the bottom of my heart." He shrugged modestly. "It's what neighbors do." That night, as Rachel and Lily locked up, they passed the new Family First Security sign Richie from the locksmith had mounted by the back door. Inside, the café felt warmer than any heater's hum, alive with resilience and community. Before heading home, they lingered on the sidewalk. Rachel looked up at the deep blue sky dotted with stars. "We've weathered a storm," she said softly. Lily squeezed her hand. "And now we get to rebuild." Rachel nodded, ushering Lily toward the waiting van. She glanced back at Rachel's café one last time. The café's windows gleamed with promise, the door's lights casting a beacon for anyone lost in life's dark nights. Justice had been served, property secured, and trust reclaimed. But more importantly, Rachel and Lily had proven that in the face of calculated betrayal, the truest power lay in solidarity, courage, and unwavering love. Together, they drove off into the starry Seattle night, 2 survivors embarking on a future defined not by fear, but by the promise of new beginnings. The weekend after Rachel secured her café's future, a calm settled over the Parker household like sunlight through rain-soaked clouds. Spring had arrived in Seattle. Cherry blossoms feathered down from University District lanes, and the air carried a hint of jasmine from Rachel's potted vines outside the café window. For the first time in months, Rachel felt the pull of life beyond survival. She found herself lingering after closing, wiping counters more slowly, savoring the hush. One evening, as she scrubbed the sink, Lily slipped into the cafe behind her. "Mom, Ethan's here." Rachel turned to see Ethan Reed standing by the door, his raincoat folded neatly over one arm. He held a small paper bag in his other hand. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "Hey," he said softly. "Thought you might need some company." Rachel managed a tired smile. "Thanks. I've got tomorrow morning breakfast covered," but she hesitated, then added, "It's been a while since I cooked for anyone other than my daughter." "Then let me help," Ethan offered, stepping inside. He peeled off his shoes and set the bag on a stool. "I brought breakfast burritos from that new food truck on Pine." Rachel laughed, a genuine, bright sound she hadn't heard from herself in months. "You remembered. I remembered you loved spicy chorizo," he said, lifting a foil-wrapped bundle. "And you probably haven't had any fun lately." She shook her head, eyes shining. Between court dates and repairs, fun was a luxury. Together they heated burritos in the microwave and then squeezed into the corner booth, sharing guacamole and salsa under the cafe's soft pendant light. Ethan told stories about the neighborhood, the barista who was learning guitar, the neighbors organizing a block cleanup. The school fundraiser Lily had joined without telling her mother. Rachel listened, grateful for each unrelated detail. She realized how starved she'd been for normal conversation, small talk that didn't revolve around Derek's next hearing or fraudulent bank accounts. When the last bite was gone, Ethan wiped his fingers with a napkin. "I know things are still messy," he said, voice low, "but I've seen how strong you and Lily are." And he cleared his throat. "I've been thinking, would you want to go out sometime? Like dinner and a movie? No courtroom visits. Just, us." Rachel's heart fluttered like a hummingbird's wings. Dinner and a movie sounded foreign and thrilling. She glanced at Lily, who shrugged encouragingly. "I'd like that," Rachel said, managing a smile that lit her entire face. "I'd really like that." That Friday, Rachel closed the cafe early, an intentional rebellion against her usual routine. She changed into a simple navy dress, curled her hair, and applied a light touch of makeup, something cushioned by months of stress. As she waited at the corner of Pine and Broadway, Ethan arrived in a charcoal gray sedan, smiling like a morning sun. He offered his arm, and together they crossed the street to Olive and Thorn, a cozy bistro known for seasonal fare. The host led them to a table by a bay window, overlooking cherry blossoms in full bloom. Candles flickered in etched glass votives, soft golden light dancing over Rachel's face. Ethan pulled out her chair, and Rachel sat, exhaling nerves in a tiny breath. As he handed her the menu, he murmured, "It's chicken pozole night. Thought you'd like something comforting." Their conversation drifted easily. Lily's latest poetry assignment, Rachel's plan to train a new barista, Ethan's dreams of starting a community garden in the alley behind the cafe. Over a shared dessert of lavender creme brulee, he complimented Rachel's resilience. "I admire how fiercely you fought for your home. It takes courage most people never find." Rachel's eyes glistened. "I couldn't have done it without you and Lily." She reached out to brush his hand. "Your support, it saved us." Ethan's smile deepened. "Then let me keep saving you." Over the next week, their tentative romance blossomed like spring petals. They met for morning runs along Lake Washington, shared coffee at the cafe before the lunch rush, and traded playlists of favorite songs, Ethan's folk anthems and Rachel's classic 90s hits. One Saturday afternoon, after finishing her baking, Rachel met Ethan at the Seattle Japanese garden. She found him waiting beneath an archway of flowering cherries. He offered her a hand-drawn map, popsicle sticks and colored markers forming a blossom trail. "I thought we could do our own tourist tour," he said, voice playful. "Follow the pink petals to the pond, and I promise a surprise at the end." Rachel laughed, taking his hand. They wandered under a canopy of pale pink, footsteps muffled by fallen petals. They paused to feed koi at the stone pond, then slipped onto a mossy bench facing Mount Rainier's distant peak. Ethan pulled a small box from his pocket. Rachel's breath caught. Inside lay a delicate silver charm shaped like a coffee cup. "I wanted you to have something that reminds you of where you started," he said. "And where we are now." Rachel's eyes filled as she fastened the charm to her bracelet. She leaned forward, then offered him a soft kiss, tentative at first, then brimming with everything words couldn't convey. In that moment, beneath cherry blossom rain, two wounded souls found a fragile sanctuary in each other. Back at the cafe that evening, the welcome chalkboard had been updated. Live music on Sunday, Ethan on acoustic guitar. Ethan stood by the bulletin board, tuning a borrowed guitar. Rachel emerged from the kitchen with 2 fresh lattes, foam hearts smiling up at them. He accepted a latte with a grin. Strumming the guitar's first gentle chords, he glanced at her. "This one's for you," as he sang a soft, original song, its lyrics weaving memories of resilience and new beginnings. Rachel felt a warmth bloom from her chest to her fingertips. Lily entered quietly, settling at a table where she could watch her mother and Ethan share that intimate moment. When the final note lingered and faded, the cafe erupted in applause. Neighbors, regulars, even a barista on duty. Lily beamed at her mother. Rachel beamed back, eyes shining with hope. As the last customers drifted away, Ethan helped her clear away tables. He placed a hand at the small of her back, guiding her. Then, leaning close, he whispered, "I think we make a pretty good team." Rachel nodded, pressing her hand to his chest. "The best." And so, in the gentle glow of hanging Edison bulbs and the quiet strum of guitar strings, a new chapter began, one in which Rachel, Lily, and Ethan forged a family not of blood, but of unwavering love and shared dreams. Late July's humid nights had become routine in Seattle. The cherry blossoms that once carpeted the sidewalks had wilted, replaced by the soft glow of street lamps and the distant echo of ferry horns. For Rachel Parker, each day at Rachel's cafe had settled into a steady rhythm. Morning lattes, midday brunch crowds, evenings spent sharing music on the patio. Lily thrived in her poetry club, and Ethan's community garden behind the cafe blossomed with tomatoes, basil, and sunflowers taller than he was. Yet beneath the surface of this new normal lay a darkness that refused to recede. Derek Shaw, whose schemes had once nearly destroyed their lives, had vanished into the prison system, but the resentment in his heart only intensified behind bars. His final threat, hoarse and terrifying as officers cuffed him in the darkness of the basement abduction, echoed in Rachel's mind. "I'll make you pay." It began with small signs. First, the door lock on the back entrance was picked, no forced entry, but the latch mechanism showed where consistent with skilled tampering. Then, late at night, Rachel found a single white rose knocked from its bud vase by the register, petals scattered across the counter. The same flower that Valerie Grant had once left as a gesture of apology was now a harbinger of fear. Rachel confided in Detective Monica Alvarez. "He's looking for revenge," Rachel said one afternoon as they stood behind the cafe's open windows. "He'll do anything to hurt me and Lily." Alvarez nodded gravely and increased patrols around the cafe while arranging for additional security cameras trained on the alley and side entrances. Still, nothing prepared them for the real threat. It came on a Tuesday evening. Rachel and Ethan had stayed late. Closing up after Lily's spoken word performance drew a crowd under strings of festoon lights. They locked the front door together, Lulu, the cafe's old tabby cat, curling between their feet, and walked to the minivan parked across the street. Lily waved from the passenger seat, earbuds in, typing a message to her best friend. "Lock your door," Rachel called over her shoulder. Lily glanced back with a grin. "I will." As Rachel reached the driver's side, a shadow detached itself from the darkness along the fence behind the cafe. The first thought was that it was one of the supply delivery drivers coming late. But the figure moved with studied stealth, too deliberate, too silent. Before Rachel could raise the alarm, a heavy-gloved hand clamped around her wrist, yanking her backward into the alley. Ethan spun, dropping his backpack in surprise, as Lily jolted upright. A second figure lunged from behind the chain-link fence, brandishing a coil of duct tape. Don't scream, a low voice snapped. Move, and she dies tonight. Rachel's heart slammed in her chest. She recognized the voice but forced herself not to react. She tilted her head, squinting through the dim streetlight. It was Marco Diaz, the former dishwasher who had helped rescue Lily months ago, but his eyes were hollow, guilt-ridden, as if manipulated by something darker. Behind him stood a third figure. A burly man with a scar across his jaw, holding a syringe and a small bag of cash. "Mom," Lily's shout echoed off the brick walls. Danielle, the café manager, appeared at the back door. Phone in hand, eyes wide with horror. The scar-faced man pushed Marco forward, and in that instant, Rachel's maternal instinct roared to life. "Stop," Rachel cried, voice trembling but resolute. "You don't have to do this." Marco's face flickered between terror and something desperate. "He promised." Marco's voice cracked, and he shook his head, pulling the duct tape from the bag. "He said if I helped him win back the cafe, he'd clear my debt, everything he owes me. I didn't know he'd go this far." The scar-faced man flicked the syringe's cap into a puddle. "Shut up," he snarled, pressing the needle against Rachel's arm. "Any funny move, and it's her blood in that van. You hear me?" Lily lunged forward, but Ethan threw himself across her, pinning her to the sidewalk. "Stay back, Lily," he snarched. Rachel's mind raced even as fear clawed at her throat. She needed a plan. Detective Alvarez's voice crackled in her earpiece. She'd given Rachel a direct line before closing time. "Get down, immediately," Alvarez hissed. "Backup's 5 minutes out." Rachel nodded imperceptibly, forcing calm. She turned to Marco. "Marco, you don't want this. We're here for you. Remember what you did for Lily? You saved her." Marco's eyes glistened. The tension in his shoulders trembled. The scar-faced man raised his arm, syringe poised. In that moment, Ethan squeezed Lily's hand, giving her strength. Lily slipped her hand inside her backpack and silently passed a small, blink-light beacon into Ethan's. It was the cafe's emergency panic device. Alvarez would see its signal and arrive faster. The scar-faced man's eyes flicked to the door as distant sirens wailed. "We've got to go," he snarled, pulling Marco toward the van. But the wail of sirens grew louder, closer, and tears welled in the man's eyes as memories of past kindness clashed with his violent orders. Detective Alvarez burst into the alley, gun drawn. "Drop it," she commanded. "Drop her or we shoot." The scar-faced man froze, sweat beading on his forehead. Rachel braced herself. Marco winced, tearing his gaze from the scar-faced man to Rachel's outstretched hand. Alvarez took a step forward. "You're surrounded. Let her go now." A heartbeat passed. Then Marco turned, ripping the tape from Rachel's arm and tearing across to the cafe door, shouting for help. The scar-faced man cursed, stumbling after him as Alvarez lunged, tackling him to the ground. Ethan and Lily rushed to Rachel's side, hearts pounding in unison. Alvarez cuffed the man while backup officers secured Marco. Later, as medics treated Rachel's scratches and the adrenaline ebbed, Lily threw herself into Rachel's arms. "Mom, she sobbed. Rachel held her tight. "You're safe, honey. You're safe." Alvarez approached, notebook in hand. "I've got him," she said, indicating the scar-faced kidnapper. "Charges will include attempted murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy. Marco will receive leniency. Your testimony, Miss Parker, will help him." Rachel nodded, tears still damp on her cheeks. Marco stood a few feet away, shame flooding his face. He mouthed, "I'm sorry." Rachel's heart, bruised though it was, remembered the boy who'd once saved her daughter. She offered him a quiet nod. As officers loaded the scar-faced man into a squad car, Ethan enveloped Rachel and Lily in a protective embrace. The night's horrors fell away in the strength of their unity, mother, daughter, partner, undaunted by violence. They walked back into the cafe together, finding Marisol lighting candles at each table. The glow felt sacred. Ethan flipped the closed sign to open, as if defiantly challenging darkness. Rachel pressed a hand to the doorframe. "We survived again," she whispered. Lily smiled through tears. We will always survive as long as we're together. The three of them, Rachel, Lily, and Ethan, stood beneath the soft cafe lights. Outside, the storm clouds offered no comfort, but inside, their bond shone brighter than any lamp. In that steadfast unity, they found proof that even the most vengeful shadows could never extinguish the light of family and love. The Monday after the abduction attempt dawned bright and clear, a jarring contrast to the darkness of the previous night. Rachel sat at one of her outdoor tables before opening, cradling 2 steaming lattes, one for herself, one for the unexpected visitors she'd agreed to meet. Lily watched from the cafe door, worry and curiosity battling on her face. Valerie Grant approached hesitantly, eyes red-rimmed, hands clasping a small canvas tote. She paused a few feet away, then squared her shoulders and offered a tentative smile.
Har kender det for her 2 sit.
Valerie placed the tote on the table, unzipped it, and withdrew a folder. I couldn't sleep, she began, voice trembling. I've come to make things right. Rachel folded her arms, drinking her latte. This isn't the flower shop, she said quietly. Not everything can be fixed with arrangements. Valerie swallowed hard, sliding the folder across. I returned Marco's wages, plus interest. I paid for the basement repairs and the security upgrades. This, she tapped the folder, is a full refund for every dollar you lost because of Derek's scheme. Bank statements, affidavits, receipts, everything. Rachel flipped open the folder and studied the documents. The bank had cleared fraudulent holds, the remodeling invoices matched Greg's work, and there was even a letter from a counselor Valerie had paid to support Marco's therapy. Lily crept closer, peering over her mother's shoulder. Valerie pressed on. I know money can't erase what happened, but I wanted to do something tangible. And she paused, tears spilling over. I owe you an apology. I betrayed your trust. I helped plan the fraud. I used Marco. I was complicit in every nightmare you endured. Lily's brow furrowed. You almost let me die. Valerie flinched. I know. I'm so sorry. I was scared of Derek. He threatened me if I didn't go along. But I was selfish and cowardly. I have to live with that remorse every day. Silence stretched. Nearby customers at other tables pretended not to listen, but the gravity of Valerie's words hung over them all. Finally, Rachel set the documents down. She exhaled slowly, meeting Valerie's tearful gaze. I believe you're sorry, she said. And I appreciate what you've done. But forgiveness isn't automatic. It's a process. Valerie nodded, voice cracking. Whatever you need, space, time, I'll respect it. Rachel looked to Lily, who stood uncertainly at her side. Rachel knelt and took Lily's hand. Sweetheart, what do you think? Lily swallowed, then said softly, I want to forgive her, but I need her to understand why it hurt so much. Valerie's shoulders relaxed just a fraction. I understand. Please tell me. Lily turned to Valerie. I almost lost my mom. I saw no one was coming for me. I want to know you'll never let fear make you hurt someone else. Valerie nodded, tears falling more freely now. I promise. I'll use my fear to protect, never to destroy. Rachel saw the genuine regret in Valerie's eyes. She straightened and held out her hand. Then let's start there. Valerie took it, relief flooding her face. Over the next hour, they talked quietly about healing, Valerie's own grief over her choices, Rachel's lingering fears, Lily's bravery. Marisol refilled their cups, offering warm smiles. When Valerie finally rose to leave, Rachel hugged her. Take care of yourself, Rachel said. Lily added, and keep your word. Valerie stepped out into the growing sunlight, clutching her tote and a small, precious sliver of hope. Rachel and Lily watched until the cafe's door chimed no more, then turned back inside. Rachel exhaled and faced Lily. That took courage. Lily nodded. So did this. She pointed to the white rose Rachel had placed in a vase by the register. A reminder. Rachel smiled, genuine and unguarded. A reminder that forgiveness, like coffee, needs time to brew. Together, They resumed their morning, hearts lighter, ready to carry the café and each other into the promise of a new day. The first light of dawn slipped through the café's newly installed skylight, painting the reclaimed wood counters in a warm, honeyed glow. Rachel's café had come full circle. From a fragile dream nearly stolen by deceit and violence to a flourishing hub of community, art, and second chances. Today marked the official reopening of the fully renovated space, and with it, the promise of a fresh start. Rachel Parker stood behind the espresso machine, inhaling the familiar aroma of freshly ground beans. She wore a simple chambray blouse and dark jeans, hair pulled back in a loose braid threaded with tiny wildflowers, gifts from Valerie Grant's weekly floral donation. Around her, the cafe buzzed with anticipation. The new menu boards, hand-lettered in chalk by Marco Diaz's sister, listed seasonal specials: lavender honey lattes, heirloom tomato tartines, and Ethan Reed's garden pesto paninis, made with basil and cherry tomatoes snipped straight from his volunteer plot behind the cafe. At precisely 8 a.m., a small bell tinkled as the first customer stepped through the glass door. It was Marisol, the retired nurse who had once offered Rachel refuge in her grief. "Congrats, sweetie," she said, voice soft with pride. "It feels like the whole neighborhood's waiting for this moment." As regulars and newcomers poured in, families with strollers, downtown freelancers seeking their morning fix, and tourists lured by the café's reputation for resilience, Rachel moved behind the counter with effortless grace. Each latte she poured, each pastry she handed over, was a testament to the hard-fought battles of the past months. Outside, under the parade of pastel pennants strung between lampposts, Lily greeted guests with homemade strawberry lemonade. She wore a t-shirt that read "Poetry and Pastries," the café's new open mic slogan. Ethan helped serve pastries and man the community board. Dozens of flyers advertised local art classes, book swaps, and the upcoming Café and Compost workshop, Ethan's initiative to teach sustainable living. At 10 a.m., the crowd swelled for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Detective Monica Alvarez, who had seen Rachel through kidnapping attempts and bank fraud, stepped forward, shears in hand alongside Rachel and Valerie. With a single snip of blue ribbon, they declared the café officially reborn. Applause erupted, accompanied by the soft strum of acoustic guitars played by Greg and a visiting friend. In the back corner, Valerie presented a framed certificate from the city. Rachel's Café, a beacon of community strength and renewal. Valerie's eyes shone as she handed it to Rachel. "You and Lily built more than a business," she said. "You created a sanctuary." Rachel accepted the frame with a trembling smile, hugging Lily and Ethan in turn. The rest of the day unfolded in joyful chaos. Live music resonated against the walls. Liam, a local poet, read verses of hope between folk rock sets. Children finger-painted blossoms on recycled paper, while parents sipped iced lattes. Marisol led a mini CPR workshop next to the bakery counter, and a wellness coach held a free mindfulness session by the windowsill. By late afternoon, Rachel paused behind the counter to catch her breath. She looked around at the mural, Maya Kim's watercolor vines spiraling toward the ceiling, and the row of restored books on the reading shelf. Each element told a story of coming back from hardship. She noticed Valerie teaching a group how to arrange peonies, laughter lilting in the air. She spotted Detective Alvarez chatting with Marco Diaz, who was offering free cookies and thanks for the café's support of his counseling. She saw Lily snapping photos of Ethan's towering sunflowers for the café's new Instagram account. As the sun dipped behind the Cascade foothills, Rachel stepped outside onto the café's small patio, where strings of lanterns now glowed. Ethan joined her, offering a chilled lavender mint spritzer. They clinked glasses, their fingers laced together. "To new beginnings," Ethan toasted. "To the home we rebuilt," Rachel added. She inhaled deeply. The scent of fresh coffee, blossoms, and warm wood filled her lungs. Each breath anchored her in the present, a place of safety, community, and unshakable hope. When evening settled in fully, Rachel locked the front door, flipped the neon sign from open to closed, and gathered Lily and Ethan in a group hug. Lily carried a small white rose in her palm, the same flower once used to fracture their lives. Now a symbol of forgiveness and renewal. As they walked down the quiet street toward home, Rachel glanced back at the glowing windows of the cafe. In those lights danced the faces of friends, neighbors, and strangers united by shared stories and shared dreams. Rachel knew there would be more challenges ahead, but tonight, she allowed herself to savor the victory. The rebirth of Rachel's cafe and the promise that from even the deepest wounds, new life and new hope could bloom. The late summer sun drifted across Seattle's skyline, bathing Rachel's cafe in a warm, golden glow. Tables overflowed with fresh flowers donated by Valerie Grant, and strings of Edison bulbs crisscrossed the patio, waiting to twinkle that evening. Behind the espresso bar, Rachel Parker moved with effortless grace. Each latte she crafted a testament to every trial and triumph that had shaped her life. Lily, now 15, manned the front counter, offering iced lavender lemonade to families enjoying weekend brunch. Ethan Reed tuned his guitar in the corner, preparing for the evening's open mic sing-along. The community garden he had helped create behind the cafe overflowed with ripe tomatoes, basil, and sunflowers nearly as tall as Lily herself. Months had passed since Derek Shaw's arrest. Yet every corner of the cafe bore silent witness to the family's journey. The mural of coffee cherries and hummingbirds painted by Maya Kim symbolized renewal. The restored basement door had become a storage closet, no longer a reminder of fear, and a single white rose, pressed and framed by Valerie, hung above the register as a daily affirmation of forgiveness. Each element wove together into a tapestry of resilience. That Saturday afternoon, as warm breezes carried the scent of fresh scones and roasted beans, Ethan stepped away from his guitar and approached Rachel with a small wooden box in hand. The cafe's regulars, Marisol the retired nurse, Greg the handyman-turned-barista, Marco Diaz the former dishwasher who had redeemed himself by saving Lily, watched curiously. Even Detective Monica Alvarez had slipped in for one last congratulatory cappuccino, her presence a quiet nod to how far they'd come. Ethan's heart pounded as he cleared his throat. "Rachel," he began, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands, "you've shown me what it means to rebuild from nothing. You fought to save this cafe, you protected Lily, and you taught me the true meaning of family." He knelt on one knee by the wrought iron patio table, pulling open the wooden box to reveal a delicate rose gold ring shaped like intertwined vines. The centerpiece, a coffee bean-shaped diamond that seemed to glow in the sunlight. "Will you marry me?" Time stood still. Teacups rattled softly as the cafe hushed. Rachel's breath caught in her throat, tears springing to her eyes. Lily gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. Ethan looked up, hope shining in his gaze. "Yes," Rachel whispered, her voice breaking with joy. "Yes, of course I will." A cheer erupted from the patio's small crowd. Marco bounded over to embrace Rachel, then Ethan, his signature grin splitting his face. Marisol dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, and Greg struck up an impromptu chord progression on the guitar, coaxing a burst of applause that rippled through the cafe. Valerie rushed forward with a bouquet of daisies and peonies, pressing it into Rachel's hands. "Congratulations," she said, tears in her voice. "You deserve every happiness." Detective Alvarez stepped up, producing a framed proclamation from the city. Rachel's cafe, a beacon of courage, community, and renewal. The crowd applauded again as Rachel accepted the certificate. Lily took a photo on her phone, already planning a social media post. "Mom said yes. Ring #LoveBrews here." That evening, the cafe transformed into a celebration. Tables were set with lavender honey tea, mini quiches, and berry-topped ricotta pancakes. Lanterns bobbed above, and the record player spun an assortment of love songs. Friends and neighbors mingled, local writers, Seattle Public Library volunteers, regulars from early morning study sessions. Each guest held a piece of the cafe's story in their heart. Ethan rose to speak. He cleared his throat, mid-conversation dying to hush, and guests turned to listen. "Thank you all," he began. voice warm, for standing by Rachel, Lily, and me through everything. This isn't just our engagement. It's a testament to every neighbor who held the door, every hand that offered help, every heart that refused to let hate win. Here's to our wedding in the spring, and to every new beginning this place will nurture. Champagne glasses tinkled in response, and Lily hugged her mother tight, whispering, "I couldn't be prouder." Rachel kissed her daughter's forehead and turned to Ethan, who offered his arm. "Shall we dance?" he asked with a mischievous grin. The first chords of a folk rock ballad filled the patio, and they swayed beneath the lantern light, years of fear washing away in that single embrace.
Epilogue.
When cherry blossoms unfurled the following April, Rachel and Ethan exchanged vows beneath a canopy of pink petals in the Seattle Japanese garden. Lily, as maid of honor, recited a poem she had written about hope rising from hardship. Valerie arranged flowers for the bridal party, Marco captured candid photos, and Detective Alvarez officiated with a silver star pinned to her lapel, an official nod to the bond between community and justice. Back at Rachel's café, guests toasted the newlyweds with lavender-infused scones and peach cobbler. A sign above the counter read, "Happily ever after starts with a single bean." Children finger-painted blossoms on reusable tote bags, while teenagers plugged in guitars for a late-night jam session. In the months and years ahead, Rachel's cafe continued to flourish as more than a coffee shop. It became a sanctuary for first dates and final goodbyes, for open mics and flower-pressing workshops, for community gardens and compost seminars. Every morning, Rachel greeted her daughter, her husband, and the city she loved with fresh espresso and an open heart. Their family, once fractured by deceit and danger, now stood united in laughter and love. They had endured betrayal, kidnapping plots, and shattered dreams, and emerged stronger for it. In the heart of Seattle, beneath the ever-changing sky, Rachel's cafe remained a living testament that resilience, forgiveness, and unwavering community spirit could transform even the darkest past into a future bright with promise. And so, with rings on their fingers and coffee in their veins, Rachel and Ethan faced each new dawn together, proof that, sometimes, the sweetest happiness is brewed from the deepest hardships. And that brings us to the end of today's story on TrueStory Vibes. Don't forget to leave a comment with a quote or moment that touched you the most. Your words give our team the motivation to keep creating more heartfelt stories. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.